Welcome. I'm Beth, and this podcast has been living in my head for a long time. I've always loved ghost stories, not just the terrifying ones, but the strange ones, the moments that don't make sense, the feelings you can't explain, the things that stay with you. Cursed and Curious is a place to collect those stories, real experiences, eerie encounters, haunted history, weird folklore. If it lingers, we talk about it here. So, whether you've had your own brush with the unexplained, or you're just curious about the things that go bump in the night, I'm really glad you're here. So lean in, listen closely, something wants to be heard. The story I'm sharing today isn't mine, but the moment I read it, I knew I wanted it to be the first one I shared. It was originally posted to Reddit by someone who clearly just needed to get it out, maybe to make sense of it, maybe just to know they weren't the only one. It starts small, noises in the night, a flicker of movement, that slow, creeping shift from that was weird to something's not right. Like every story I share on this podcast, I can't say what's true or not, only that it's stuck with me. And that someone out there was scared enough to write it down and ask, did anyone else see this? This is something in my apartment. This happened years ago in an apartment I used to live in. And maybe someone out there can help me figure out what we're dealing with. Back in 2000, right after we got married, my husband and I moved into an apartment in Somerville, South Carolina. At first, nothing was strange. It was just a normal place, and life went on. Not long after moving in, we adopted a cat, and then another. The second bedroom became the cat room. The litter box, food, water dishes, a tower, and a heap of toys. They were young, energetic, and more than a little chaotic. So, at night, we'd close them in that room to sleep, so they wouldn't tear the place apart while we were in bed. That's when the noises started. Almost every night, we'd hear a metallic tapping coming from the cat room. The wall behind our headboard was shared with that room, so we could hear it clearly. Clicking, tapping, metallic. And it only happened at night, never during the day. We could never figure it out. Eventually, we just joked that the cats were building a spaceship back there, that they'd finally had enough and were planning their escape. Missing socks and small things around the house, we blamed it on the spaceship. After a while, we started letting the cats roam freely at night, though we kept all their stuff in the cat room. One night, as we were drifting off, we heard a loud crash from the kitchen. We both sighed. The cats must have knocked something off the counter. We had this habit of leaving dishes on a towel to dry overnight, so it made sense. We figured nothing broke, it didn't sound like glass, so we groaned, said we'd deal with it in the morning, and went back to sleep. But the next morning, the kitchen was untouched. Nothing was out of place. No dishes on the counter. Nothing had fallen. We'd already put everything away the night before. We have no idea what we heard. Then came the strangest night of all. We were in the living room watching TV while the cats were tearing around, chasing each other. Normal stuff. One of them jumped onto the love seat, which sat a few feet out from the wall under the window. Then suddenly, everything stopped. Both cats froze, one on each end of the love seat, staring at the same spot just beneath the window. At first, we thought they were about to pounce on each other, but then we realized they weren't looking at each other. They couldn't even see each other from where they were, but they were both stiff as statues, eyes locked onto the same spot. My husband nudged one of them with his foot. Nothing. She didn't even blink. I walked over, picked up the other one, and he stayed frozen in my arms. Every muscle locked. Even his tail was stiff. like a rod. He just kept staring at the same invisible point. Then my husband waved his foot through the air where they were looking. In an instant, it was over. The cat in my arms went limp, jumped down, and wandered off like nothing had happened. The other one did the same. It's like whatever they were seeing had disappeared. Now, there's something else, and this has nothing to do with the cats. We didn't even talk about this part until years later. Back then, I worked nights, and my husband worked days, so there were plenty of times I'd come home in the morning and head into the bedroom to change or go to bed. And sometimes, randomly, not always, I just couldn't stay in there. The room would feel wrong, heavy, uncomfortable in a way I couldn't explain. Sometimes I'd get changed and head straight to the couch instead, telling myself I just wasn't tired yet. I never mentioned it to my husband because what would I even say? That I was a grown woman who couldn't sleep in her own bed? It felt silly. And when I'd come home to find him asleep on the couch, I assumed the same thing, that he'd just dozed off watching TV. Years later, long after we'd moved, we were watching a paranormal show that mentioned a Native American legend in the area. As soon as the description came on screen, we both froze, sat up, pointed at the TV and said, at the same time, I saw that. It was a dark figure, about 4 feet tall, solid black, not a shadow. Always in the same spot, standing at the foot of the bed, slightly to one side. And here's the part we'd both been keeping to ourselves. We only ever saw it when our eyes were closed. I'd be lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, and I'd see it, clear as anything, standing still, always in the same place. The moment I opened my eyes, gone. But as soon as I closed them again, it was there. My husband had seen the same thing. Same size, same spot, same exact experience. And then, when I finally asked about the nights he had slept on the couch, he admitted it had nothing to do with the TV. Sometimes the room just didn't feel right, and he couldn't stay. And there's one last thing. The hallway that connected the living room to the bedrooms had a bend in it. At night, that back area was completely dark. When one of us would get up to go to the bathroom, our male cat, who could be anywhere in the apartment, would suddenly appear and follow us down the hall. While we were in there, we'd hear him use the litter box. But when we came out, if he hadn't finished, he'd wait in the bedroom doorway and meow until we came back to walk with him. If we got to the living room first, he'd come find us, crying until we returned. After we moved, he never did that again. We've both tried to research what we might have experienced, but we haven't come up with much. According to that TV show, the entity we saw was known to local Native American communities and considered evil. Unfortunately, we were too busy comparing notes at the time to catch what the rest of the show said. So, if anyone out there knows what that might have been, we're still curious. Okay, there's a lot in that one. I think what makes it so creepy is that it's not this huge, dramatic haunting. It's a slow build. Tiny things that just feel weird enough to notice, and then they start adding up. The tapping noise, the crash that came from nowhere, the cats freezing and staring at nothing. It's all small stuff until it really isn't. Also, those cats were not messing around. Cats can be dramatic, sure, but that locked in, stiff posture, not even reacting when picked up, that's not normal. That part gave me chills. And the fact that it all snapped back to normal the moment the space was disturbed? Yeah, no thank you. And then there's the bedroom stuff, which somehow manages to feel even worse. That feeling of not being able to stay in a room, not because something's happening, but because something just feels off. I've had that. I think most people have. You can't explain it, so you shrug it off, but in hindsight, it just kind of sticks with you. Also, let's be real. When the cats are refusing to walk down a hallway alone and literally waiting for you to escort them, yeah, something was off in that place. The figure they saw, short, solid, always in the same place, really stuck with me. It's one of those details that feel too specific to brush off, and out of curiosity, I did a bit of digging into the Native American and local folklore tied to South Carolina. One legend from the Catawba people tells of the Yihasori, known as the wild little people. These spirits are said to live in tree stumps, small in size, playful but unpredictable. Sometimes they help people, sometimes they mess with them, mischief, missing objects, strange nighttime noises. It is a bit of a stretch, but it crossed my mind. There's also the Buhag from Gullah folklore in South Carolina, Low Country. Buhags are malevolent spirits who slip into your home at night, sit on your chest, and feed off your breath while you sleep. They're not always described as small, but the sense of dread, the sleep disturbance, the intense discomfort in the bedroom feels eerily close. Neither one fits the story perfectly, but both legends suggest that the idea of something unseen, something that moves at night, affects your body, changes how you feel in a space, isn't new. These aren't modern ghost stories. They've been around for centuries. And maybe that's what makes them so unsettling. Whether it was something cultural, spiritual, or something else entirely, this couple clearly experienced something that stayed with them and changed the way they saw their home, their memories, and each other. I wanted to share a second story, something a little different in tone, but still very much in the realm of eerie. But the first story was personal, detailed, rooted in lived experience. This one sits in that stranger space between local legend and whispered folklore. The kind of tale you might hear in passing or find tucked away in an old blog post or local archive, with just enough detail to feel real and just enough mystery to leave you unsettled. I came across this one while digging into stories from Hampshire, and honestly, it stuck with me. It's short but sharp, sad but sinister, and the final image is one that might sit with you for longer than you expect. On the outskirts of a village in Hampshire, there once lived an old woman and her newborn granddaughter. The girl's parents, her son and daughter-in-law, had died in a terrible house fire. The baby, somehow, had survived. Or so the story went. The years passed, and the little girl was never seen in the village. She never came out to play. No one ever saw her at all. The grandmother kept her to herself, never letting anyone near the house. People started whispering. Children gave her a name, the Bad Mother. Eventually, their curiosity got the better of them. A group of village kids, caught up in one of those quiet town dares, decided to sneak into the old house at night, just to see for themselves, to prove the girl was real. But inside, they found no sign of a child. No toys, no clothes, nothing to suggest a girl lived there at all. Except for one thing, a crib. Inside it, they found a body, a baby, burned almost beyond recognition, its skin charred, its mouth sewn shut with thread, and where its eyes should have been, buttons. The children ran. They told their parents what they'd seen, and not long after, the woman was taken away to to a psychiatric hospital where she lived out the rest of her days. No one knows for sure how long she'd kept the baby's body, how long she'd pretended she was still alive. But the truth was clear. The girl never survived the fire, and the bad mother had been holding on to something that was long, long gone. Folklore like this doesn't always give you the full story, and I think that's why it stays with people. You're not supposed to have all the answers. It gives you just enough to imagine the rest, which somehow makes it worse. What I find interesting about this one is it's not really a ghost story. There's no haunting, no supernatural twist, but the horror is still there. It's in the grief, in the delusion, in the way that someone could love something so much they refuse to let it go, even when it's long, long gone. There's something extra unsettling about the way the story unfolds through the eyes of the children. The dare, the creeping curiosity, and then that discovery is so detailed and horrific that it feels like something someone really did see, even if we don't know who, even if we never will. And then there's the imagery, the burned skin, the sewn mouth, the buttons for eyes. It's easy to see why some people link the story to Coraline, even if it was never meant to be connected. It has the same blend of sadness and wrongness that makes it feel timeless, uncomfortable, almost mythic. I think stories like this stick around because they hit something universal. Grief, obsession, the fear that love, real, deep love, could go somewhere dark. Whether this happened or not almost doesn't matter, because now it lives in your head, like all the best folklore does. Before we wrap up, I wanted to share a quick behind-the-scenes look at something I've been quietly involved in. Alongside this podcast, I'm also a part of a paranormal investigation team called Paranormal Presence Investigations. We visit locations around the UK to explore the stories, energies, and environments that don't always make it into the history books. Last weekend, we investigated the old prison in Northleach, near Cheltenham. It's a striking site with a heavy presence, and on the night the team split into two groups to cover more ground. Here's a quick breakdown of how the night unfolded. So group 1 started in the old police house, placing 2 music boxes downstairs while the team remained upstairs with equipment set throughout. They picked up on what felt like a strong male spirit with some solid activity, cat balls lighting up, K2 spikes, and a few unexplained noises. At one point, one of the music boxes downstairs triggered on its own. A couple of team members went down to check, found nothing had moved in front of it just went off. Later, they moved into the prison building. The upstairs cells were quiet, so the team headed down to the cellar, and that's where things shifted. They started hearing talking and knocking from the courtroom above, and the tripwire began triggering slightly, as if something or someone was watching them from another room. Eventually, they moved up to the courtroom itself, and activity stayed low, but a few team members saw a shadow in the doorway, and then the dead bell rang on its own. And then group 2, which I was with, had a quieter start. The prison felt flat at first, but when we entered the cells, 2 people felt immediately sick, like something had shifted. The energy was heavier there. Activity was subtle, but it didn't feel empty. And then later in the police house, we tried the phone call method, which is placing one phone downstairs and keeping the other phone upstairs on speaker, listening for anything that might come through. During this session, we picked up on the name Annabelle, who we believe is a 6-year-old girl who reportedly used to visit her father at the site. Whether he was an officer or a prisoner, we don't quite know, but her presence felt very clear. It was one of those nights where energy moved in waves, nothing constant, but enough to keep you watching the corners. I'll be sharing more investigation updates like this in future episodes. If you're into the behind the scenes side of things, like evidence reviews, deep analysis, historical background, and maybe even the odd live breakdown of something weird we caught. All of that will be going up exclusively on Patreon after each investigation. And if you want to experience it yourself, Paranormal Presence Investigations will be back at the old prison in Northleach on June 7th for a public event. I'll include a link in the show notes if you want to join us. And that wraps up the very first episode of Cursed and Curious, but the hauntings don't have to stop here. Had a paranormal experience of your own? Send it to beth@cursed-curious.com and you might just hear it featured on a future episode. If you enjoyed the show, let the ghosts and the algorithms know by rating, reviewing and subscribing. It helps new listeners find the show and keeps the spirits from getting restless. You can also find Cursed and Curious on social media, Instagram, TikTok and Threads at Cursed Curious and X, Cursed X Curious. If you'd like to support the show, you can find Cursed and Curious on Patreon. You'll get early access to episodes, bonus content and a shout out in a future episode. It's also where I'll be sharing behind the scenes updates, things that don't quite make it into the main feed, and the occasional ghost related spiral. That's on patreon.com/cursedcurious. I'd love to have you there. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay haunted.